Good morning. Oh, I got to try to not do the big breath right at the beginning. Happy Tuesday, everybody. So, the seminar I just got done doing is wealth mastery. And so, wealth is 80% psychology, 20%, knowledge or techniques or practical knowledge or however you want to look at it, 20% systems. And, so we spent a bunch of time on wealth psychology, but then they did a series of systems of different ways that you can make money. And of course they did have somebody there on cryptocurrency. They had the basic stock market approach, which is still, a fundamental approach. And I can go over that if you guys want me to. But there's one that they talk about that I don't think we think about very much, and that is buying another business. And now is a great time to think about that and look into that for a series of reasons. Number one, money's cheap. Interest rates are incredibly low, so money is very cheap. When you hear people say money is cheap, that means when you borrow money, the interest rate they're charging you is very little. Right now you can borrow money for 3, 4, 5%. In the 70s, it was 17, 18% interest rates, if you can imagine. And, there's a big worry that that's going to come back with all the money that we've dumped into the economy over the past 14 months, that interest rates are going to be forced to go back up. But for right now, the money is very inexpensive. So that's one big advantage in terms of buying a business. If you want to borrow money, you don't have to borrow it at 17%. Secondly, the baby boomers are really getting to the point where they're done working. Most of the baby boomers are in their 70s, and there are literally tens of thousands of businesses around the country that are run by baby boomers that are good, solid businesses that they don't have anything to do with. And a lot of times what happens with these businesses is they just disappear. And, the thing about starting a business is it's really hard. I mean, you've got to, you got to have traction, you got to do all this stuff, and then you got to wonder, if I build it, will they come? Will the customers come? If you're thinking about starting a business, maybe you want to look into buying one. You can go online, there's brokerage firms that sell you a business, just like there's brokers that'll sell you a house. And, you can buy a small business, something where you would invest like $30,000 and then finance the rest. A basic $30,000 business should be able to pay you a salary of $75,000 to $100,000 a year for 5 years. And if you do the right stuff and grow the business properly, you ought to be able to turn around and sell it. At the end of 5 years, you should have the debt paid off. It should be paying you a couple $100,000 in salary, and you ought to be able to sell it for about $750,000. And you got a business that is already established. You want something that's been around 5, 10 years. And you got somebody that knows how to run the business. And, there's a lot of things to consider when you're doing something like this, just like there is when you're starting your own. But I don't think it's something that people think about as much as they should. Because if it's already established and it's already got a customer base and it's ready to go, you can set up a system where you invest an amount of money, and then you've got a co-pilot, right? You've got somebody who will help you and guide you through this. And in particular, most of these businesses have been somebody's baby. They've been something that they're really have cared for 10, 15, 20 years. And a lot of times they're hoping that one of their children is going to take over the business. And a lot of times it doesn't work out that way. The kids aren't interested. And so the business sits, and if they wait too long, then the business isn't going to be worth anything. So Keith Cunningham was the guy that taught us about this, one of my favorite speakers of all time. He's the dad from Rich Dad, Poor Dad. And now Keith's from Texas, okay? So he starts out like this. He goes, here's what you're looking for. You're looking for a baby boomer who's old, sick, dying, and hates his kids. Okay, well, that's a little rough, but it was kind of funny. But you understand the point is they're really hoping their kids are going to take over this business, and the kids aren't interested. They're off doing whatever. So now they've got to look at this and go, okay, what do I do with this? Well, it's a ready-made business. And if you already know how to run a business, if you understand how to do that, you understand how to do the systems, you understand how to do the stuff, this might be a good thing to take a look at. And Keith's got a series that he does that I haven't taken yet, but I'm gonna at some point, about how to buy a business. He's got I think it's a seminar that you go attend that's like 3-4 days down in Texas. I'm sure there's a million books out there on it. I've learned what I've learned through hanging out with Keith. But $30,000 down, you work the business for 5 years, you can sell it for $750,000. I mean, if let's say you're my age, let's say you're in your middle 50s, and you've had a job your whole life, and you're like, you want financial independence. Well, you do a couple of those, and by the time you're 60, 65, you've got financial independence, or you're certainly a lot closer to financial independence, because you could do one for $30,000 that you sell for $750 5 years later. Then you could buy into one for, $400,000 that you can sell later for, $4 or $5 million, and then you're done. And it's really not that complicated. It's going to be work. Obviously, it's going to be hard work, but it's going to be not that complicated. So, there's a lot of different ways to think about getting yourself to financial independence. Obviously, we've talked a million times about the biggest thing is know what you want and know your why. So those are your two biggest factors. But think about the idea of buying somebody else's business. I mean, if you just think about in my area, as soon as he said, tired, sick, and hate your kids. I mean, that was funny, but I immediately thought about 4 or 5 or 6 very successful businesses in my area that I know the people. I'm sure that they're getting to the point where they're ready to be done with this business. It's been their baby, and their kids aren't interested in it. And here's a thought from my side. These people want to leave a legacy, right? They've spent a lot of time developing this business. They're proud of it. It was their baby. They want to leave a legacy. If you become that child that they never had, that will take over this business and respect it, respect the customers and grow it, continue to give their employees a job. These people tend to be very loyal to their employees. Well, the floodgates are going to open. I mean, they're going to, the money's not going to be as important to them as the business, as making sure that it gets carried on. So that's a good way to maybe find yourself in financial independence in about 5 years, because then you can turn around and sell it to somebody else. A lot of these end up getting sold to funds when they get to a certain size, insurance companies and that type of thing. But if you become that legacy that carries on the tradition of this great business that this person created, well, now you might have a chance to really do something significant. My thought for the day: have a great Tuesday, everybody. We're all in this together. Let's take care of each other.